Adolfo is a man who lives an ordinary life working as a zookeeper. However, one day he faces a particularly challenging situation for an average person. He encounters a small lion cub. Although other people at the zoo wanted to feed and keep the cub as a pet, Adolfo did not allow it, but Adolfo had no idea how to take care of this little lion. He was unsure of what to do. The small lion looked at Adolfo with trembling, frightened eyes, and it was also hungry. Adolfo knew something needed to be done or this little lion might not survive. In the end, Adolfo decided to take the little lion and bring it to the best place he could think of for its care, a wildlife sanctuary. The lion was still very young and needed maternal care and attention. Adolfo was now confident that he could provide this care and attention. He spent some time thinking of a beautiful name for the small lion and finally came up with a very special and sweet name. Drawing inspiration from the Lion King, he named her Kiara. This name was very beautiful and meaningful to Adolfo. The name Kiara means God's precious light and bright. Indeed, Kiara had come into Adolfo's life like a ray of light. Adolfo decided to provide motherly care to the small lion as a foster father. He truly adopted her as his own little child, becoming both mother and father to her. Despite raising her as a pet cat, the fact remained that she was a lion. Instinctively, she had the soul of a hunter. When she grew up, she would not be a domestic cat, and the facilities provided by the wildlife sanctuary would eventually become insufficient for her. Adolfo found himself in a dilemma, constantly thinking about his small lion. New laws were also making the situation increasingly difficult. As Kiara began to grow, she started to pose a danger to the other animals in the sanctuary. When she demonstrated her hunting skills, Adolfo realized she could no longer stay at the sanctuary. He was responsible for the safety of the other animals, and he had to consider them as well. Despite the excellent relationship between Adolfo and Kiara, and their love for hugging each other, the same could not be said for other people. Adolfo had to think carefully about what to do in the future. People around him were constantly trying to convince Adolfo that Kiara needed to return to the wild. However, Adolfo knew that Kiara could not survive in the wild on her own. Despite being a lion at heart, he had raised her as a pet. Kiara had never experienced the wild, and releasing her into the wild would be like abandoning her to die. A lion cannot live alone in the wild. They live in prides. For these reasons, it was very difficult for Kiara to adapt to and survive in the wild. The best option Adolfo could think of was to send Kiara to a place where she would receive special care and where other big cats lived. Adolfo made his decision and began looking for a place for his small lion. Finally, he found the Black Jaguar and Tiger Foundation in Mexico City. This foundation agreed to take care of Kiara. Upon reflection, this foundation seemed like the perfect place for Kiara to live. The foundation was highly specialized in this area and did their best to care for big cats like Kiara. However, like all good things, there was a downside. The foundation was far from Adolfo. He wouldn't be able to see his beloved Lioness, whom he cared for and loved like his own child, as often as he wanted. And Adolfo was genuinely afraid that Kiara would forget him. But Adolfo had no other choice and was forced to go through with it. Being forced into this decision caused him great sorrow for a long time. Kiara was placed in the foundation. This was now her new home. Kiara also had difficulty adjusting to this new situation. She felt very sad and depressed. This foundation and this place were very new to her. She missed Adolfo. After some time, she managed to find a new family for herself. Over time, she recovered and improved. Kiara had now adapted to her new home. Honestly, she seemed to have forgotten her foster father, Adolfo. But for Adolfo, the situation was different. He would never forget the lioness he had loved and hugged like his own child. Kiara was always on his mind. He wanted to see his lioness again, but there were many issues he needed to resolve first. He had to wait for a while because the foundation had asked him to. Seeing Kiara, who was sad when she first arrived, could make things worse. For example, it could hinder her adaptation to her new home. Another issue was the other animals for whose safety Adolfo was responsible. He couldn't just leave them. Additionally, the foundation was quite far, and the journey to the foundation would be expensive for Adolfo. On top of all these issues, he had to work. Protecting wild animals was a great passion for him, and he loved his job, taking care of them. Still, Adolfo wanted to find a way to see Chiara because he could never forget her and missed her terribly. The only thing that comforted him was the thought that Chiara had adapted to her new home and was happy. 7 years had passed. Adolfo had not forgotten his lioness. The good news was that Adolfo was now financially stable and had both the time and money to visit Chiara. Adolfo thought Chiara had forgotten him. Even though the lioness had forgotten him, Adolfo was filled with the desire to see her. After 7 long years, he set out with hope. Everyone was very nervous and curious. They were hoping to see if the lioness would recognize the man who had been her foster father. They hoped for a sign from Chiara. Because Adolfo was a zookeeper, they allowed him to enter Chiara's enclosure. This was a very dangerous act, and the sanctuary staff made it clear that Adolfo was responsible for any problems that might arise. What Adolfo did was truly risky. If Chiara did not recognize him and saw him as a threat, things could go badly. After all, even though he had taken care of her as a cub, she was still a lion. Chiara was no longer the small lioness Adolfo remembered. She had changed and grown since he left her at the foundation. She had lived with other lions like herself and had become a respected lioness. The human parent she hadn't seen for years was a thing of the past for Chiara. But Adolfo had made up his mind. He had taken all the risks. Adolfo opened the gate to the neighboring enclosure. When he entered, Chiara greeted him with strange looks. Her behavior was equally strange. She had an impatient demeanor. When Adolfo said her name, Chiara excitedly scratched the cage door, as if trying to open it with her paws. This grown lioness was no longer as Adolfo remembered her. She easily knocked Adolfo to the ground. It was as if she had an accusatory attitude towards him. At first, everyone was very scared and stood there in shock, but after a while, everyone realized that Chiara was doing this out of happiness and did not actually want to harm the man. Adolfo was overjoyed because, contrary to everyone's thoughts, Chiara immediately recognized and hugged him. Chiara was like a little girl seeing her father after years. Similarly, Adolfo was as happy as a father reuniting with his child after years. Despite the long period of 7 years, the bond between Adolfo and Chiara had not been broken. No matter how much time passed, they continued with the same intimacy when they came together. As everyone can understand from this story, a lion's long-term memory is as good as a human's. The story of Chiara and Adolfo confirms this. Please don't forget to like the video, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to the channel.